Hey everyone, this is my Ascend H12 hybrid kayak slash canoe, and I get asked questions about it all the time when I'm out on the water and out at the reservoir. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes and go over some of the mods I've put on this. I really like the way I've got it set up. I'm really happy with it, and it just makes fishing so much nicer because I like to fish with my trolling motor running. I cruise along the shoreline and I just make my way down the shoreline fishing as I go. And so it's nice to be able to steer with my feet, and it's nice to be able to have infinite variable speed control on my motor. So those were the two most significant things that I did. First of all, we'll have a look at the motor real quick. I mounted it very simply by running some bolts through a 2x4. I've got a metal plate on the bottom there with some holes drilled through it just to give it a little bit of extra stiffness, because this is plastic after all and it is flexible. So the metal plate under there gave it a little more stiffness, but all it is effectively is a 2x4 on edge, and that allowed me to mount my transom mount Minn Kota 30. It's just a C2, a regular old 5-speed, and that's important. We'll get to that in just a minute. But you mount the transom mount on there sideways, and then you just keep the motor at a 90-degree angle, and you've got a nice side-mounted motor there, nice and simple. If you want to, you can flip this and flip it up, but I don't see why you'd ever do that. It would throw your center of gravity way out. It would be hard to maintain and hold that. I've got this positioned here so that while I'm in my sitting position, I got to sort of twist around and lean back a little bit, but I can just unscrew this a little bit, pull the motor all the way up and pull it out of the water while I'm out there. I don't actually have to get in and out of the boat like I would if I had mounted it back here somehow. So I've got full access to deploy, raise and lower my motor while I'm out there. I've also got these two cords attached to my rudder so that I can either pull that one or pull this one, and I can lower or raise my rudder while I'm out there. And of course those cords go all the way up to up here, and I can grab one on either side. So again, from my sitting position, I don't ever have to do anything. I can just go ahead and raise and lower that. And then of course once it's in the down position, I've now got my rudder control foot pedals up here. They're fully adjustable. You don't have to put it in position and then attach the string. The string that controls the rudders is actually attached up here, and it free slides over all of this apparatus, and so I can move that pedal wherever I want within this piece of string. And so I've got fully adjustable pedals, and I've got the rudder control on both sides. So that makes it really super handy. The thing that really kills it though is the infinite variable speed control. If you've ever used one on a trolling motor, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've only ever used 5-speed trolling motors, then you don't know what you're missing. If you have used an infinite variable speed trolling motor, you can never go back to a 5-speed. It may sound whiny, but it's just, you can never get the speed right where you want it with a 5-speed. It's either a little too fast or a little too slow, and having that infinite variable capability is just, oh, it makes all the difference in the world. So what I've got, and I'll show you how I've got it wired in a moment, I've got my battery indicator right here. I've got a forward, off, and reverse switch, and then I've got the actual speed control that dials it up. And so I can go from anything I want. Again, infinite variable. And then it goes all the way up to full crank. So this is a lower dollar unit. This is only the Minn Kota 30 C2. And the reason I bought that was because I have my own motor controller. If you buy the more expensive units that have the infinite variable speed built into them, not only do you pay a lot of money for it when you really don't need to, but you're forced to leave the head on, and then you've got to do all your controlling up here, and you got to do all your steering, and everything happens from here, because that's where the motor controller and all the speed controls happen, is in the head of the unit. So what you do is you buy the 5-speed unit, you pull the head off, you ignore the wires that go to the speed coils, you just take the black and the red wire and you just hardwire them into a very inexpensive little motor controller or a little speed control unit. And you'll see when I turn it on, it shows you exactly how much percentage of the battery, power I'm using. So I guess you can hear that motor humming. I'm at full crank. And we can go all the way down. And so I can just look down there. If you'll notice, I had to cut a little bit of the protective guard away there so I could actually see from my sitting position. I can see how much motor I'm using. So I've sort of learned over time exactly where I need to set that for how fast I need to be moving and so on and so forth. So you simply wire your hot, your positive and your negative goes into the little speed controller, and then the output goes down back here, and I've got a couple of alligator clamps on it, and it clamps to the battery. So this power goes into the speed controller, and then all of my motor controls and everything happen from here, and then the wire goes out and goes up right into the head of my motor, and I don't have to worry about touching that once it's down in the water. All of my forward, reverse, and speed controls happen from there, and then all of my steering happens from there. So all I've got to worry about with my motor is raising it and lowering it. I don't have to steer with my motor. I don't have to reach back to adjust the speed. I don't have to do anything. All I got to do is reach back, unscrew that a little bit, pull it up, tighten it back, and my motor's now out of the water, and vice versa. Once I shove off and get away from the land a little bit, I lean back, unscrew that, lower the motor, tighten it up again, and I'm good to go. Now I will say that with the motor pointing straight forward, it does tend to push off to the right a little bit just because you've got the motor offset. So what I do is I set it up just a little bit like that. That might be a little bit more than I would do it normally, but for the sake of seeing what I'm talking about in the video, I just offset it a little bit, and that push this way sort of forces it to just go in a straight line. So I don't have to constantly fight the steering. I can just let it go and it goes in a straight line, and then I use my pedals only when I want to turn. So I've got all that set up for my motor and everything, and if you're wondering what all these other wires are for, these two little wires that basically just clamp to these clamps are my battery indicator. That's the little light you just saw sitting right there. And then these two wires actually likewise go down here, and they just go up along next to the side of the seat. And these go into my latest mod, which is dual USB ports. So when I'm out on the water, I can charge my phone and I can keep my GoPro nice and charged. In fact, I've got a long enough cord on my GoPro that when I've got it on my head cam, I can actually have it plugged in while I'm sitting there. And as long as I don't turn my head too sharply or do anything too radical, I can actually just have it plugged in while I'm wearing it. And I've got pretty much unlimited, my SD card would run out long before the battery would. So there you go. It's not perfect, but it's pretty awesome for what I've got invested into it. I was talking to somebody the other day about the Torqeedo, and the Torqeedo, I want to say it's the model 403 if I remember correctly. Whatever it is, they sell an ultralight model, is made for vessels this size, kayaks, canoes, etc. It's right off the rear. You can deploy it from the front and everything. I'm sure it's an amazing unit. I've never used one. I've never experienced one. I'm sure it's powerful and does everything they claim it does. And of course, when you steer with the motor and you steer directly from the rear, you can push it, you can just turn on a dime. So again, that would be ideal to be able to have one of those Torqeedo ultralights on the back of here, but they're $1,800, and whether that's a good deal or not, I don't know. Maybe they're worth $1,800. But for me, I just don't have $1,800. So whether they're worth $1,800 or not doesn't matter. I simply can't afford one of those Torqeedos. I was able to put this together sort of piece by piece, and slowly over 2 seasons, I got this built up to be pretty close to you know, being able to do all the same things. I can deploy the motor from where I'm sitting. I can deploy my rudder from where I'm sitting. I steer with my feet, so I don't, you know, I don't have to interrupt my fishing. And I can literally just creep and crawl and hug the shoreline with an infinite variable motor. I lose a little bit of efficiency by having the motor on the side. And, you know, again, it's not perfect. But without the cost of the battery, with just the motor and the rudders and the foot pedal and having everything wired in, the motor controller, everything without the battery is less than $350 all told, put in there. And then, you know, you can decide on what kind of battery you want. Right now I'm saving my pennies to get a lithium ferrous phosphate. I'll be able to go from the 35 amp hour battery that I've got in here now. And if I'm gentle with it, if I don't crank the motor too hard all day, I can stay out there for quite a few hours on this small 35 amp hour battery. But at 35 amp hours, it's about 50 pounds. If I can get one of those lithium ferrous phosphate batteries, I'm going to have about 100 amp hours for less weight. It'll be about 35 pounds, and I'll have about 100 amp hours out there. So that will be my next goal. But again, you know, if you can't afford to drop $1,800 on the Torpedo, setting your kayak up or your canoe or anything up like this is pretty easy. I'll put a link down below to the, well, I'll put a link down to a bunch of the different stuff, the battery, the motor, rudder, all kinds of different stuff if you want to buy any of this stuff. But these motor controllers, a few points to consider about them before you go ahead and purchase one. I was asked the other day why I always recommend like a 60 amp and it peaks out at 100 amp, even though this motor at absolute maximum draw is only going to be maybe 25 to 30 amps. I do that because these are, I'm not going to beat around the bush, these are cheap little inexpensive Chinese units, and I don't necessarily trust their advertising when they say they can withstand a sustained 30 amps. Could they? Maybe, I don't know, but I'm not going to take the chance on it. For an extra $3 or $4, you can get the one that's rated for 60 amps, and then you simply don't have to worry about it. As far as taking it in and out of the truck or the boat or whatever, I just leave it where it is. It's all solid state, so in theory, if it gets wet, nothing should really come of it unless you start getting corrosion, and then you'll have some issues with it over time. But as of yet, I haven't really gotten it wet, other than maybe the occasional drip or splash of water while I'm out on the water. I haven't got caught out in any rain, haven't capsized or anything like that. So I've never worried about sealing that up in any kind of waterproof container or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, honestly, if I capsize, my battery's just going to the bottom of the lake. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just going to vanish out of the back of the boat. I used to keep a battery cover on here until I realized just the whole thing's gone. It's going to, you know, go with the battery cover and all. It's just going to go if I ever capsize. There won't be much I can do about that. So these are fairly inexpensive. I think for the one I've got there, and I don't even know if this particular model unit is still available, but that was, I don't know, maybe $25 or $30 or something. So if I get a season or two out of them and then they start going up or going bad and I got to buy another one, I really don't care about that. If you want, though, you can buy pretty expensive motor controllers that are $80, $90, and then you'll probably, you know, they're probably come in sealed plastic, you know, units and everything else. But if you want to just buy the cheapie, I've gotten a couple years use out of them, and you know, I've had a couple go up over the years, but again, I think I've gone through 3 of them in the last 5 years at maybe 30 bucks a piece or something like that, 25 bucks a piece. So that's about all I can think of. My newest little plug-in there, I've got my dual USB port. That really makes me happy. I'm able to finally plug my battery and everything in, get my camera charged up, get my phone charged up while I'm out on the water. I used to carry around a little portable battery bank with me, but I don't know why, but I just always had problems with it. I almost feel like the battery in my phone used to wrestle with, you know, whichever had more juice, like my phone was trying to charge the battery bank rather than the battery bank trying to charge my phone. I've already hooked it up. I've already done a test run. This charges my phone. This charges my GoPro. It's basically like plugging it into the power adapter in your car or anywhere else. So it's even 2.5 or 2.4 amp fast charging. So loving it. Can't wait to get out on the water this afternoon and check it out. So there you go. That's a quick look at all the mods. If anybody wants any actual on the water video and can see me, you know, motoring around and showing you how it actually handles, then let me know and I can always shoot some video of that for you. In the meantime, I need to get this shoved all the way in there and strapped down, and then I'm going to get out of here and go fishing this afternoon. So thanks for watching. Hope that was helpful to somebody. I definitely highly recommend this Ascend H12 or even maybe the H10. It's a little smaller, but where I go out on the water, I'm required to have a minimum of a 12-foot boat, so the H12 is what I had to buy. But the H10, I'm sure, is just as good, and it is an absolutely fantastic vessel. They are available at Bass Pro Shops. I can't put a link down to that below, but if you shop at Bass Pro Shops, check out this Ascend series kayaks. They're awesome. Really, really love them a lot. So thanks again for watching. See you on the next one.